Now, whenever I'm doing training, I have 2 rules. And my first rule is please do not believe a word I tell you today. They say knowledge is power. I've never really bought into that. I think knowledge is potential power. It's what you do with the information that counts. So I'm going to give you my experience in social media, people I know. I'll show you examples of good and bad. But really, it's for you to go away and do. And what I've realized working in this space for about 12, 13 years now, it is very simple. It's not easy, but it is simple. And the reason why I say that is because you've got kids that are 16-year-old, 17-year-old kids that are millionaires doing this. You know, they haven't gone to university. We're not working out Google's algorithm. There's actually a very simple step that we need to follow, and I'll be talking about that. And my first rule, or my second rule, I should say, is about your mobile phones, and that is, can you please keep them on, but on silent? See, I don't mind if people, you are on Twitter to say in the middle of an amazing presentation with @Andrew_Davis, so I will not be offended. No, the real reason is I'm going to be telling you tools and that you can just go, and the reality is what you can do on your laptop, you can do on your phone nowadays. So feel free when I say a tool, just go to use it. The tools are free, so you like free? Everyone like free? Yep. All right, good. There's going to be free tools, and please just go ahead and just try and get some results while we're here. So, who am I? Why am I here talking to you? I have only worked in digital. Since I graduated in 2001, I've only worked full-time in the digital space. And my first job outside of university was I used to moderate chat rooms and forums for the television show Pop Idol. Does anyone remember Pop Idol? Yeah, with Gareth Gates and Will Young and Darius. That was my first job. And then, the only way companies could speak to their customers and vice versa was chat rooms, forums, and emails. I then went and worked for Liverpool Football Club, doing the same thing. Any Liverpool supporters here? I'll be honest, I don't support them. They paid well. I went with the money, if I'm being honest. Sony PlayStation and Friends Reunited. Who remembers that site? Friends Reunited. And that was my job. I used to moderate chat rooms and forums, and it was a great job until my parents said, get a proper job. Because working on the internet wasn't a proper job by 2002. And I left, and I ended up at the BBC. I ended up actually at Radio 1 Extra, and it was the sister station to Radio 1, and for 4.5 years, I used to produce radio shows at the BBC. Now, 2 things I learned at the BBC, and one of them I'm really going to go into detail about. The first is creating digital content, because then I used to create radio shows for radio. Now I watch radio on a video platform via my phone, if that makes sense. And the reality is where we are now, people consume content differently. Now there is this big push of create more content, but the reality is if you're a news team, yes, but most of us are not. And there's a lot of pressure that comes on, especially working in the social media space. And what you're going to see, especially in the next 18 months, is not necessarily how to create more content. It's create one piece of content and make sure people can consume it in different ways. Because the reality is some people like to watch, some people like to read, some people like to listen. Even though it's the same information, people will just consume it differently. And also circumstances as well. Now, because this is more of an advanced social media, I'm not going to go into the basics of social media. It is more of an intermediate to advanced. I think the biggest challenge for marketers moving forward is once you've clicked publish, then what? What happens next? Because this is going to be a key thing. And this is what I find a lot of marketers struggle with. And I call this the talented broke singer syndrome. I worked in the music industry for 10 years, and I've met a lot of talented broke singers, thousands of them. Amazing voices, amazing on instruments, amazing bands, amazing rappers, but they struggle on promoting themselves. And when it comes to what we're doing, this is, like, as I said, this is the bit that I find we are struggling with at the moment. I then worked a couple of years ago, I ended up working with the government, training over 500 startups. And I noticed the same thing. Amazing tech, but nobody's heard of them. So one of the things that we want to be able to look at moving forward is once we've clicked publish, then what? Because I think there's been a disservice in this industry. And I don't know if anyone's heard of the saying, content is king. Has anyone heard that? You know, content is king. All you need is great content. Build content and people will come. And I do believe content is king and content is important. But the reality is this. Because I'm sure everybody in here has built some form of content before. And we've published, we've put all our time and effort into it, maybe some money, and then we have 7 views or a couple of retweets. And that can be quite disheartening. So what I want to show you is that, and one of the things I learned at the BBC, is when it comes to the internet, there's only 3 ways people are going to find anything you put on the internet. Outside of advertising, or going to a specific URL, www.yourwebsite.com, how do you think people will find your content? So word of mouth or through friends. You can add recommendations in there. You can add retweets or forwards, ultimately sharing. Advocacy.
And like you get people who are like your brand ambassadors.
And they share, but I'll put that within sharing as well. How else am I going to find your content? I go on my laptop. Google. So within that, I'll put that under search. You search something, you put some keywords in, and you find it that way. Share, somebody's told you about it, or you've seen it in your news feed. What's the third way?
Direct marketing?
Not direct marketing, because that's more your sharing stuff. Not many people get this, so I'll tell you. And that is, you found it by accident, or you stumbled upon it. And has anyone ever been on YouTube and you're watching a video and it's got related videos, and you're like, oh, what's this? And you watch a video, and then another video, and another video, and 3 hours later, you're still on YouTube. What's happening there is you went for one thing and ended up somewhere completely different. So one of the key things when it comes to where we are now with social media, once we've clicked publish, or even before we click publish, is think to yourself, what keywords do people can use? And there's a really cool tool called Keywords Everywhere. I don't know if anyone knows this, but it tells you, if you put in a keyword, how many people are searching that keyword as well, and it suggests other things, but it puts numbers behind it. Because what you don't want to do is rank number 1 for a keyword that nobody's searching for. You've got share. So you need to be thinking, why would anybody share my content? And I'm going to get into it in a bit more detail as well. But there's a tool called BuzzSumo. Does anyone know BuzzSumo? If you don't know, type in any keyword or any website, and it tells you what content on that website or that keyword has been shared the most across the internet, and it breaks it down into different platforms as well. So what's been shared on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Reddit as well. And Stumble. And Stumble is all about the algorithm. Does anybody here know what edge ranking is? Edge ranking, if you're going to use Facebook, you need to know edge ranking. Because edge ranking to Facebook is what SEO is to Google. Everyone know what SEO is? Yeah, okay, brilliant. And Facebook's edge ranking works similar to this. The reason why I use Facebook is because a lot of the other sites are similar to this as well. And edge ranking works off 4 main principles. 1 is affinity, i.e., if I've put up a piece of content, how many people are engaging with that piece of content? Now, who here is in the B2B space? Okay, who's B2C? Okay, so it's a kind of a split between both. This kind of works with all the others as well. But if you've got, for example, on Facebook, I'll just use Facebook because that's what everyone says they were on, so they'll get it. Comments. And then you've got emojis. So how that works is you put a piece of content up and you get likes, and then you get comments, you get shares, and then you get smiley faces. Now, each of these is not equal. A like might be worth 1 point. A share might be worth 4 points. A comment might be worth 3 points. An emoji might be worth 10 points. So you can have a piece of content with 9 likes, or say 15 likes, but actually, if you've got 2 smiley faces, it's more likely to go into the newsfeed than it is if it was just the likes. Does that make sense? Because ultimately, what we want to do with all of the networks is open up the funnel. Because right now on Facebook, if you put something up on Facebook, you're getting 1%, 2% if you're lucky. Same as LinkedIn, same as Instagram. But what we want to do is show there's engagement, because all it does is it tells the tool, oh, this is interesting. Let's, rather than 1%, let's open it up to 2 or 3%. So that's affinity. So then they said the type of content. Because you can have a whole bunch of shares and comments and emojis on an event, but because Facebook right now is not really pushing events, you don't see it that much in your newsfeed. But I'm sure over the last couple of years, you've seen a lot more videos on Facebook, especially live videos, than you ever did before. And that's because they're pushing that type of content. So videos do well, images do well, and the reason why is because if you've got an image, if you're going through somebody's album, and they've got 100 pictures, and you're going click, 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 like click, 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 smiley face, whatever. Every click is an impression. Every impression, Facebook could put an ad. And if they're putting an ad, they're making money. So images always do well, so will videos. The next is to do with time decay. And that is, you can have a video with a lot of emojis and a lot of shares and a lot of likes, but if that was 2 weeks ago, it's not going to come into the newsfeed. So time is important. So really on Facebook, on all of the sites, apart from maybe YouTube, it's the first 19 hours. So moving forward for next year, one of the things we need to be able to do as marketers is, if we put up content, before we've even put it up, we know what to do next. We literally have a list of things to do. And the last one is links. If you've got a piece of content, you put it up on Facebook or Twitter, or not Twitter, Facebook or LinkedIn, and it's got a link on, they're going to make it less. Less people are going to see it. Why do you think they're going to do that? Takes you off the site is one thing, but why else? Yeah. Well, ultimately, yeah, you can do that. That's what an ad is about. In an ad, you put up a link to somewhere. So they're thinking, well, why would we open up or give you more reach with a link if we can get that if you pay, if you can get that if you pay? And like I said, most of these have now become pay to play. So that's the kind of the 4 main things. It's called EdgeRank. Feel free to Google it and research it more. But most of them follow the same suit. Relevancy plays a big part as well, especially on Instagram. But if you look at LinkedIn, a lot of it is to do with this as well. Now, I don't know who they are, but they say that in the B2B world, before somebody makes a strong decision, they need to see something 11 times before they say, right, I'm just going to take the leap of faith. In B2C, it's about 7 hours. You're not going to be, let's say if it's B2B, you're not going to take up all of those 11 touch points, but when you do, you want to be able to make the most impact. But first, if they can't find you, you're not even going to be here anyway. And most of, actually, I'll get to that in a minute. So, people now decide when they consume content, you just need to be there. And yes, I did quote myself. The reality is this. If you're not there, your competition is. It really is that black and white. So give yourself a fighting chance. And as I said, this is one of the key things when it comes to your content, understanding the 3 ways people can find you, which are search, share, and stumble. Great. So, one of the things I haven't done, and you might have gone to many social media presentations or digital presentations, and everyone's kind of stats this, and we've got this many viewers and this many likes, and blah, blah, blah. So I've not gone into detail on statistics because you're going to play a game. And the game is very simple. With the person next to you, so obviously in your tables, if you've got an odd number, just be free. I want you to guess what is behind these boxes. So, what percentage of B2B marketers has social media management as just one of their job responsibilities? What percentage of marketers say they can measure their social media's ROI, return on investment? What percentage of the people that discuss brands online do not follow those brands? And LinkedIn is the most popular social network for B2B with What website coming in second? So I'm going to give you guys 2 minutes with the person next to you. Now, please don't jump on Google and try and find out the answers. You're playing for pride here. There's no prize. So I'm going to give you guys 2 minutes, starting from now. Okay. Okay, so let's see what you guys have. What percentage of B2B marketers has social media management as just one of their job responsibilities? What did you guys have? Shout out. 70? 70, 75? 80? 80? 40? Anyone going lower than 40? Going once, going twice? 64%. Again, I come across this a lot. A lot of the training sessions I do, a lot of people got into social media because it was the boss usually passed it on to them. We need to do this in social media. You're now in charge. And that's kind of like, I see a lot of people nodding. It's like, yep, that's exactly how I got in. So a huge percent, and that's B2B. I haven't got the B2C statistics, but that's a huge percent. And that's a lot of responsibility because social media, if done properly, it's a full-time job. I work with some companies who's got like almost the amount of people in this room as their social media team. So, but the reason why that is because the impact it can have. Now, what percentage of marketers say they can measure their social media ROI? What do we get? 8, just shout out. 30, 80 I got. 30, 15. What was that? 45? 44%, close. So 44% say they can measure, still under half, which is not great, but again, this is they say they can measure. Whether they do it or not, who knows? But again, it's something that, since I've started in this space, it's always been the elephant in the room. Like, okay, well, this is great. So what? I've got 100,000 friends. What does that actually mean? And that will always be the case, and I'll show you towards the end how to measure that. What percentage of the people that discuss brands online do not follow those brands? 5? 50? 40? 80? 80? 80? 80? 96%. So, the vast majority of people that are talking about a brand is not actually following the brand, which then means when it comes to your strategy, it's how do we listen properly? How do we monitor people's conversation without being too intrusive as well? And last but not least, LinkedIn is the most popular social network for B2B. What's second? Twitter? Twitter? Anyone else? Instagram? Facebook? Facebook? YouTube. YouTube, purely because of video marketing. Video marketing is huge, especially in B2B, especially if you've got a product in B2B, you need to demonstrate that particular product. But YouTube is second. Twitter is third. Instagram is fourth. Facebook is fifth. Okay, so again, like I said, I just wanted to kind of show you, take something that could be quite boring, turn it into a game, show you that anything could be made interesting if it's delivered in a particular way. Now, so I was at the BBC, and I went to San Francisco, and I was doing a show out there, and I was approached by a small startup company that had just been bought by Rupert Murdoch for about $600 million, and they said, we are a social network, and we want you to be part of the team to launch it internationally. And I decided to take the biggest gamble of my career and leave the comforts of the BBC to be part of the team to launch MySpace. Who remembers MySpace? Yeah? So I worked for MySpace with Tom. Yes, who remembers Tom? And yes, he does exist. So when I was at MySpace, I joined MySpace 2006. And to give you an idea of the landscape of the world, Facebook was only available to students then. 90% of YouTube's traffic was on MySpace, and a tweet was just something you heard from the birds. So I'm actually considered one of the old guys in this particular space. And when I joined MySpace, there was about 50 million people on the site, and within a year, we took it to 250 million. Now, that at the time was the most popular website in the world, even overtook Google. So I know what works, but a year later we lost about 230 million, so I know what doesn't work. So I'll show you what to do and what to avoid. But I learned a number of things at MySpace. One of the things that I learned from MySpace, especially coming from the BBC, was at the BBC we would broadcast. I had a show that was on at 7 o'clock on a Friday or Saturday night, and we put it out, and if you heard it, great. And if you missed it, tough. Wait till next week. And then iPlayer came out, and then you could listen to someone on iPlayer for a week. But when I went to MySpace, it was like saying, right, here's the platform, do what you want. Just don't break the rules. And that is pretty much how the world works now. Netflix. Do what you want, or watch whenever you want, binge watch, as long as you don't break the Netflix rules. Instagram, Facebook. So then it became survival of the fittest. And ultimately, one of the key things in this type of environment that we want to be able to do is get people's attention and keep it. And without a doubt, the number one way to do this is through storytelling. If you've put content on the internet, you're telling a story. The problem is most people are telling a bad story. But if you've put content up there, you're telling some form of story. Now, there was a guy called Richard Etwaro, and he said, I believe the best leadership skill is storytelling. And because you want to take people from A to B, A is, what is this I've just seen on my phone or laptop, to B, bought your product, or even more, loyalty, so they keep on buying your product or service, you're taking people on a journey. And you can get stories from many things, from TV shows, from books, from your mates. But the place I like to get stories from and how I'm going to teach you to structure a story are through films. Now, I don't know if you know this, but there's only 7 stories films tell. There's only 7 different stories they tell. And the story that's probably the most popular and what you're telling is the hero story. And I'm sure everybody's aware of the hero story. And that is, I'm going about my day, something has happened, and now I must defeat this to achieve that. And then the rest of the story is how I go about doing that. And if you look at all of these people here, I'm sure you all know Harry Potter, Neo from the Matrix, Simba. Rom-coms are in there too. The goal is to get the guy or the girl. Star Wars, Devil Wears Prada, Bridget Jones. They're all on some form of journey. Now, as I said, this is what you need to do. This is what every company needs to do. The problem with the hero story when it comes to organizations is they think they're the hero of the story, and they're not. Who is the hero of the story that you're telling? The customer, yeah. And that makes sense. Obviously, it's the customer. But you'll be surprised if you go to people's websites or look at their social media, and it's, we've been established since 1966. Look at the awards that we've won. Look at the case studies that we've done. Look at me, 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 me. And ultimately, people are going to think, that's nice, but what's in it for me? There's a number of different people, or heroes, or target audience, or persona, whatever terminology you want to use, that you need to target. And they're all going to have different wants and needs. So this is the beauty of social media, is because you can actually target those type of people. Now, these heroes, in every single one of these films, has 3 challenges. The first challenge they have is the external challenge. And that is, I must defeat this. And right now, I don't know how to do it because the promised land is over there, and this thing is usually the villain is in the way. And what you'll find in these films, you will know within the first 20 minutes who's the hero, what they need to do, and who's the villain, or what's stopping them. If you don't know those 3 things in the first 20, 25 minutes of a film, you will say things like, this film's slow, or I have no idea what's happening right now. Because clarity is important. And a lot of storytelling is about being clear, not cute. So how do we be clear? And it's exactly the same when it comes to what you're doing online. We don't have the luxury of complication because time is our biggest asset. And it will be obviously the biggest asset to your end users. Because I don't know about you, it annoys me now when people call me. I'm like, oh, Can't you just text me this? Because I have to stop doing what I'm doing to answer the phone. Where in a text, I can just respond back when I want. And this time plays a big part, and so does convenience. If you notice, all the big companies, Facebook, Apple, Netflix, all of these that's grown in the last 5, 10 years, the thing that's common throughout is convenience. Deliveroo, Uber, it's all about convenience. And that is going to play a big part because if you look at how we go about life, it's what's convenient. Who has Netflix here? I don't know about you, but every film I type into Netflix is never on Netflix. It's like similar to this. But I still have Netflix because of the convenience of it. Same as Spotify. I've worked in the music industry. I've not paid for music since 2000, but I pay for Spotify because of the convenience. The second challenge they have is the internal challenge. This is what makes the film. And this is all about self-belief. And that is, I must defeat this, but I don't think I can do it. Or what makes little old me think I can get that girl when she always goes for the captain of the basketball team? Or what makes this team of misfits who has to go and win the cup and they're against this team from the rich area of town who's got all the best kit and they're coached by the best coaches, and then we play them halfway through the film and get humiliated, and at the end of the film, self-belief happens and then we go and defeat that. Every single film goes through this, and it's the internal battle that makes the film. This is also what's going to help when it comes to your storytelling, when it comes to building yourself online. Because ultimately, as I said, people's always going to be thinking, what's in it for me? And this bit answers that. The last bit I actually got from a guy called Donald Miller, who runs a brand called Story Brand. And for me, I've been teaching this for years, but he kind of completed this. And that's the last challenge, which is the philosophical. And this is usually the big picture. And this is the bit in the film where you can... Has anyone ever watched the film and then you're relating to that main character? You'd be like, yeah, I can... You put yourself in the film. And that's when you look at the big picture. If Bridget Jones doesn't get the guy, then all girls like Bridget Jones don't get the guy. It's literally that philosophical. And it's the big, big picture. So, has anyone seen this film? The Matrix. If you haven't, I'm going to spoil it for you, but I apologize. Who was the hero? Neo. Yes, Neo. What was his external challenge, or who was that person? Agent Smith. What was his internal challenge? And it was a question he was asked throughout the whole film. Believing he's the one. Sorry? Believing he's the one. Yes. Am I the one? Once he overcome this, then he could fight Agent Smith and win. But before that, he wasn't. So, what we're going to do now, you've got your heroes, select one. We need to identify the challenge. So, what I want you to do is, what is the external challenge? One external challenge that they're facing, and what are the internal battles that they're going through? So the way I kind of go through battles is, what type of state, how do they feel? Do they feel overwhelmed? Do they feel sad? Do they feel confused? What does their typical day look like? Are they busy? Are they bored? Are they traveling? So there's some of the things that I look at. Now, does anyone know the company HubSpot? HubSpot, if you don't know, it's a real cool, like a CRM system. And they have what's called a headline analyzer tool. And their heroes were solopreneurs for this. So there's individuals, the entrepreneurs who are usually by themselves. And they realize that the external challenge they face is time. And if you ever work by yourself, you end up doing any and everything. They looked at the internal challenges. They know they have to use social media, and they know they have to capture attention, so they need to come up with a headline first that's going to get people's attention. But a lot of them, I'm not creative. I don't have time to do this. I can't afford to pay somebody. So they created a tool called Headline Analyzer, and feel free to use it, where you type in any particular keyword, and it gives you headlines that gets people click based on data. So that's what I mean by it. This is why it's important to kind of understand this. So, again, I'm going to give you guys about 3 or 4 minutes. With one of the heroes that you've picked, what do you think is their external challenge? What is stopping them? And time, to give you a clue, time is usually one of them. Money is something else. And their internal challenges. And think to yourself, The internal challenge usually is I. And that's what I am confused. I am overwhelmed. I don't have the time. I want to impress my boss, but I don't think he or she will allow me to come. It's those type of things. Does this make sense? Because what you'll find is when it comes to the internal, when it comes to you creating content, it needs to answer this. Because if it doesn't, action won't happen. Okay? So I'm going to give you guys about 4 minutes, starting from now. Just because of time, I'm not going to go and find out what you guys has put. But hopefully it makes sense, this whole storytelling. Because like I said, from a more advanced point of view, we've gone past the stage of just putting content up. We need to tell a story. And like I said, if you're going to put anything on the internet, you have to tell a story anyway. Because you're now media producers and publishers as well as what you do. So, I said the heroes. We're telling the hero story, and we've identified heroes. I also said that that's not your role. You do play a role in this story. And in every one of these films, there's always a character that appears, and it's a very important character. What type of character appears in these type of films? Not the sidekick, not the villain. Yeah. The mentor, the wise man, the guide, the teacher, whatever it may be. That's your role. In The Matrix, it's Morpheus. In Star Wars, who was his guide? Who was his mentor? Obi-Wan. I'm going to put Yoda in as well, because I realized don't talk about money, politics, religion, and Star Wars. But yeah, I would say it's both of those. Who was his guide? Not Rafiki. Rafiki was more the narrator, which is data when it comes to social media. Not Timon and Pumbaa, that's the sidekick. A sidekick is your fun content that's not going to convert your work, but you need it to help with this. Scar's the villain. Who said Mufasa? It's Mufasa. It's his dad. His dad was the one that gave him those wise words that made him go back to take out Scar and then live happily ever after. Who was his guide? Who was the wise person to Harry Potter? Yeah, Dumbledore. Who was her guide in The Devil Wears Prada? The boy? Not Meryl Streep. She was like the villain. It was more of the anti-villain type thing, but she wasn't the guide. She wasn't the guide. You'll see, not the love interest, the guy from Entourage. Not the other receptionist. That was more the sidekick. Him. Yeah. He was the one, whenever she needed advice, they'll go to. That's your role. Because you don't need to go on the journey. You've been there, done that. You know what your end client wants and the challenges that they go through. So you don't need to put yourself as, we've been established since then and we're doing this, we're doing that. That comes usually on the website, but it doesn't come at the beginning. Now, the mentor, the coach, they have 3 attributes. Number 1 is understanding. And that means you know the internal challenges. You can empathize with that particular end character. The second is authority. You show authority because you need to be seen as a mentor. So you need to show that you've done it before. So in the Hunger Games, you got Hamish. And he is the mentor to, I can't remember her character, because he had completed the Hunger Games before. So it's that authority. The other thing is a personality. Because you could offer everything that people like, but people might not just like you. Or people want, but they might not like you. When I was at the BBC, it was no surprise that Radio 1, during the day, every single presenter had a regional accent. That wasn't just a coincidence. That was, they didn't want to be seen as a station from Great Portland Street in London. They wanted to be seen as a national station. So it started off with Chris Moyles and ended up with some of the others. I think Edith was there. I can't remember who else was there. Scott Mills and a few other people. But it was all regional accents. And this is what you need to be able to do. Because they say it's hard to see the picture when you're in the frame. So, there is no more B2B or B2C, it's just H to H now, humans to humans. Because ultimately, you're dealing with humans. If you're telling stories, you're telling stories to humans. We're not speaking to chatbots, we're not speaking to robots. So we need to understand the social in social media. Now, here I think is probably one of the most important parts of social media, and that is, so what? That is a question what I deal with quite a lot now. What I do now is I train. Since I left MySpace 2009, I've spent the last almost 10 years going all around the world training companies of all sizes, from FTSE 100 companies to individuals, worked with many charities. I sat on the advisory committee for Ofcom for 4 years, and I created the first social media course within schools that got kids, that was connected to GCSE English, and it got kids that were on Ds, we got on Bs, Cs, Bs, and As. But I spend all my time now really focusing on this question. So what? I got 100,000 friends on Facebook. So what? It's like being rich in Instagram, in Monopoly. Doesn't mean anything in real life unless we make it mean something. And what I've seen working, I've put B2B because that was kind of the brief I was given. But in most B2B organizations, there's probably around about 9 different reasons why they're using social media. One of them is part of the sales cycle. Might not be to get the sale, but it could be to get the lead. Or it could be in the awareness stage to find that information, to have a better conversation. The sales team can have a better conversation. Another reason is campaign awareness. So most people are doing campaigns, and it's a good way to create the awareness of a campaign. Another one is events. So how can you use social media pre-event to promote the event, during the event, and then what happens afterwards? And can we use what's happened afterwards as promotion for the next event? Another is building an audience or a community. The reality is this. You're either building your own community or you're leveraging someone else's. And if you're leveraging someone else's, it's going to cost you time or money. So one of the key things is building your own community. Customer service. A lot of people now, and probably yourselves included, prefer to go online to find out information and to speak to people rather than on the phone. So you're seeing more and more people use social media for customer service, and you see it when people go on a website and it's got the live chat pops up, or can we help you, etc. Positioning thought leadership. This is a big piece. How do we position ourselves in a particular area of the market that when people think of this, they think of us? So a lot of organizations do this. How do we position ourselves or as a thought leader? Networking. A lot of B2B is usually one-on-one. So social media, a lot of people use it for networking. Reaching different audiences or different heroes. And last, increase website traffic. How can I use all of this social media stuff to get more people to my website? Because I can only say so much on Twitter. I can only say so much on LinkedIn or Instagram. If they want to find out more about me and my organization, and that's, we've been established since 1966, blah, 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 find out on our website, not in a social environment. Now, the reason why this is important is because these are the rules of this game, and the game that you're playing is social media. Most organizations hasn't set this up at the beginning. So when you've not set up the rules, you don't know what game you're playing. And for example, if you wanted to do positioning and thought leadership, how you go about social media is more data-driven, more in-depth content, and knowing what to do once you click publish, and really focus on the promotion. Look at it like this is a film, or you're an artist with an album. Your report might be your album. Adele doesn't just one album and that's it. She got to go to the radio stations, she's got to go to here, she does the promotion. Every single film does this, and that's how you've got to treat your piece of content, and that is the promotion behind it. If, for example, you was networking, you'll probably be more individual messaging, slipping in the DMs, or whatever the kids call it, and things like that. If it's to increase website traffic, it's short-form content with a strong call to action to get people to click on that link. So how you go about using social media really depends on the rules that you set up. Now, one of the things I'll just quickly say, because you can look at that, and hopefully you're looking at that and thinking one thing resonates. Or you might even look at that and think, actually, we could do with all 9 of them. Like, it really depends. But one thing I'd say is this, and that is, how do I use social media to get people to my website? And what you'll find is that sometimes the problem isn't social media. Sometimes the problem is what happens on your website, because it might be too confusing. And some of the things you ask people to do offline, you'll never ask them to do, ask them to do online, you would never ask them to do offline. So the best way for me to kind of describe this is through a video. So.
Hey, just that, thanks.
You sure?
Yeah.
Username?
Oh, Nick M?
No.
NM1983?
No.
Zandy Pops?
Sorry.
Zandy Pops?
No, OK. Don't worry, I'll help. What's your postcode?
Oh, it's GU749ZT.
Welcome back, Nick Forever.
Oh, okay.
Please listen carefully to this bread licence agreement before continuing with your purchase of a loaf of bread. If you do not, blah, blah, blah. You also agree not to use any bread-based product for any purposes prohibited by United Kingdom law, including without limitation, design, development, manufacture of missiles, chemical, nuclear or biological weapons.
Tick.
I'm afraid you've timed out.
What? Sorry. Hello? Excuse me. Oh, yeah, hey.
Just one loaf, sir.
Yeah, we just...
What's your username?
It's Nick Forever, but number 4, not the...
Gotcha.
Yeah.
OK, I'm just going to check that you're a real person. Could you say that for me?
It's not even a word.
OK, how about this one?
You know what, forget it.
Or this one?
Hippo Potter Nice.
You're in.
Great, I'm in.
£8.85.
It's supposed to be 98 pence.
Plus express delivery.
What's that?
Oh, well, it's express delivery. It's fast. So there's,
Come to the information desk. Sharon, the information desk. Thank you.
standard.
Standard.
Standard delivery. That's £4.99.
Why?
Bread insurance. You didn't untick the don't decline bread insurance option.
You know what, I think I'll risk it.
It is quite close to the sell-by date.
Don't care.
98 pence it is. If you want to pop back in 5 business days, it'll be ready for your collection.
Well, I need it now, obviously.
Oh, OK. You want the take-home today price? Well, that's £3.27.
You know what, I'm going to go.
Come back soon.
I won't.
Dear customers, this call will be closing in 10 minutes. Please proceed to the checkout. Please proceed to the checkout. Thank you.
So one of the things that I find is social media, you could be doing a really good job on social media. It's just what happens once you get your website, that might be the confusion. And as I said earlier on, people need clarity and convenience. Because if you can't do that, there's going to be a million other options for your end user. So in today's digital world, most companies lose sales before they are even aware of the opportunities. And that is really understanding ways people can find your content, understanding the story that you're telling, knowing who your target users are, knowing what makes them tick, knowing your role and how you go about creating content, and think to yourself, I'm Yoda, not Luke Skywalker. Understanding that content can be in many different formats. It's not necessarily create more content, it's how can I get the most out of my content, and ultimately setting the rules up for the game for you to win. Like I said, I've been doing this since the beginning, where it was just MySpace and Bebo. Who remembers Bebo? So, I've seen the rise for all the platforms that's come, all the companies that's got on it, before it even was a fad. So I've seen and I've trained well over 12,000 people, and I see different insights from different people. And the same questions come up over and over again. And ultimately, as marketers, we need to create content, we need to get it to the relevant people, and we need to get them to do something. And that is the simplicity of what we're doing. Hence why you could be a 16-year-old millionaire doing this. Okay? Any questions?